So we'll do a little walkthrough on what we did and my idea behind the shed. So primarily we try to get 40 by 48 pallets, and the place we get our pallets, that's usually the common size. They've got some longer ones. Sometimes we use them for roofing. We've done that in the cabin, and we did that in Philip's shed. But I decided to do the shed with 40 by 48. And you try to make the walls with similar thickness of boards. On this particular one, the lower ones, we use thicker boards. And because we're not going to be walling the inside of this shed, it's not a cabin, or it's not a finished product inside. I made sure all the outside boards of the two sets of pallets lined up, so it just makes it easier to put siding on, if you're not dealing with uneven surfaces. You'll notice inside here you're going to have uneven surfaces. You'll see this is in farther than this, but it's all outside, which makes it easier to put siding on. And the bases, you could spend money and put pressure treated. I put a 2x4 all the way around the bottom, so it does a couple things. It ties all the joints together. That's why we put the 2x4 between the two sets of pallets. So it ties everything together, right? So there's no open joint. There's a support on this joint here. There's a support on this joint here. There's a support on this joint here. And then plus it's attached to the bottom 2x4s all the way around. And I just use pellet boards for that, because you're on 3 inches of gravel. It's really good drainage here. And if they start to rot, all you have to do is support the building, take a recip saw in there, cut off the screws, and just put in another pellet board. I mean, they're free. They'll probably last 10 or 15 years in this environment because it's pretty dry. You might last longer. You could put pressure treated under there if you want to, but you're going to spend, $100 on pressure treated lumber. You don't really need to do that. Right. So anyway, explain the bases. I explain the size of the pellets. I explain why this is something new. We usually took the pellets and we would interlock them. Like we take this pellet, put it halfway over this. But when you do that, you end up cutting a bunch of pellets. You end up making more joints for yourself. And by putting the 2x4, bridging all these centers, the structure is fairly solid. We got one wall up. So once all the walls are sided, especially this back wall, because it's a shear, like this way, it doesn't move hardly at all, because we've got the shear taken care of on this side. What do you mean shear? What's that mean? Well, that's the shear is the either you get the shear by, on a house they'll put sheathing on the outside, and that really strengthens it. Like they won't rack this way. And so when we get that back wall on, the tin on the back wall, that'll really make it more stable this way, and we've already got it stable this way. But I think all I'm going to do is just put, pellet boards across. I've got hundreds of hooks that I've made, and I'll just put hooks up and hang all our appliances here. We're going to have a table in here somewhere. Like a bench or something? Like a bench for gardening stuff. Okay. That's what the shed's for. It's get all the gardening stuff in one place. Mm.
Well, tell me about your strapping there in the back.
So this is more or less just a temporary thing. It's pellet strapping. When that steel strapping they have when they strap something to a pellet, Well, you're always getting lots of this stuff laying around, so I've kept it. I had a couple of rolls of it. So all I've done is I just made an X pattern on this back wall and used the shingle nails, you know, and did it in an X pattern, and that really strengthens the wall up, you know, because you are dealing with pallets, and we're not going to sheath the inside of it, so I wanted something a little bit extra to you know, that's why mechanics can't build airplanes, because they'd be too heavy.
Well, are you the exception that proves the rule because you built airplanes?
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Somebody else had a kit though.
This is
Somebody
true.
else designed it. The mechanic didn't design it.
Well, there's that.
Yeah. So the bracing in the corners again, that's just some lateral.
But that's permanent, isn't it?
That's permanent. We're going to leave that there. And I might put some ties, more ties across later. I don't know.
See how it goes.
We'll see if it needs it. And you know, like the idea behind this building was we had a bunch of materials left over. That tin is all left over. We had to buy screws. Yesterday I had to buy another roll of roofing wrap. That's what we use. I mean, that's what it's originally built for. It's roofing. But we find it's good for this. Might as well use the product for both of them.
And we're going to use it for the project that's coming up later on.
We have another project coming up later on, so we'll use it. We'll use about a quarter of that roll to finish this off. So, you know, the roll was $89, so we got another $25 to $30. So far we've only spent $105.
Yep. I keep the info in the details.
Yeah. So I mean, we cut pallets apart when we need materials, and we've been collecting pallets, you know, for 3 or 4 months to build it. And so what's left to do for structure is rebar. So what we'll do is we'll drill in each corner, and we'll put the rebar, you know, one rebar would be about a 2-foot rebar, 3/8. Drill a hole, and we'll just do it this way, and in the front, do the same thing. You know, if you get a high wind, it's not going to want to tip it. And where we got this, it's not usually a problem. So the roof, we basically, because of the pallets, it's a little over 8 feet. So usually you put the roof braces at 24 inches. But to even the 2x4s out, we did it a bit bigger than 24. I think it's like 25 and a half or something.
26, I believe.
Yeah, or 26 or something. I can't remember what the dimension is, but I always watch snow load on my buildings, and the tin will help shed. You know, we do our thing with the greenhouse, and we never had any issues with that over the winter. We haven't had any problem with it. So another thing, we put this 2x2 up here, and then we're going to put a 2x2 all the way around where the joint is here, and then we'll caulk the top of it. I mean, it's not the ideal thing to do. You should buy a flashing. You should have put a flashing up first and have a flashing coming out here. We've got 12 inches of overhang, and you just put a bead of caulking around the top. There's going to be no insulation in the walls. We've got this roofing felt, or whatever you want to call it. It protects the wooden structure, you know. So anything that gets behind that siding is just going to go straight down this. So not too worried about it.